The moment they ripped the worn leather jacket from his back, the entire gas station fell silent. No one stepped forward. No one dared to interfere. The man stood with bruised hands and lowered eyes while two officers tossed the jacket onto the concrete as if it were worthless. But across the parking lot, his wife never stopped recording. With trembling hands and tears running down her face, she captured every second. She had no idea that within hours, that single video would spread across the country, and before sunset, more than 600 Hells Angels riders would roll into the city, not looking for violence, but demanding something far more powerful than revenge. They wanted respect restored. Before we begin, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that every person should be treated with dignity, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to Kindness Legacy. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful stories that remind the world compassion still exists. The summer morning had started peacefully. The desert sun painted the highways in golden light as Maverick Sloan and his wife, Taryn Vale, rode side by side toward a veterans' charity ride several counties away. Maverick was impossible to miss. His silver beard, weathered face, and faded leather vest told the story of decades spent on open highways. He wasn't loud or intimidating. Friends knew him as the man who stopped to help stranded drivers, donated quietly to homeless shelters, and spent weekends repairing motorcycles for struggling veterans. The leather jacket on his back wasn't expensive. It carried years of memories stitched into every patch, every scratch, and every faded thread. Each emblem represented someone he had ridden beside who never came home. Taryn understood that jacket better than anyone. She remembered nights when Maverick sat silently cleaning it after funerals, gently touching memorial patches dedicated to fallen friends. To outsiders it looked like ordinary leather. To Maverick it carried the weight of loyalty, sacrifice, and brotherhood. They pulled into a busy highway gas station surrounded by tourists, truck drivers, and local commuters. Everything seemed normal until flashing police lights surrounded the parking lot. Officers had received reports about an unrelated disturbance nearby and began questioning groups of bikers in the area. Most interactions remained polite, but one young officer noticed Maverick's club patches and immediately assumed the worst. Without asking questions, officers demanded Maverick remove his jacket. He calmly explained that the memorial patches represented brothers who had died serving others and that removing it publicly would dishonor them. His respectful refusal only escalated the tension. Within minutes, more officers surrounded him. Taryn watched helplessly as voices grew louder. Maverick never raised his own voice. He simply stood still with tired dignity while trying to explain the meaning behind the leather he wore. Then came the moment that changed everything. Two officers grabbed the jacket and stripped it from his shoulders while bystanders stared in stunned silence. The leather hit the pavement beside Maverick's boots. Someone laughed. Someone pulled out a phone. Taryn was already filming. She captured every second without speaking because she knew words would never carry the truth as powerfully as the images before her. Her husband wasn't fighting. He wasn't resisting. He simply stood there looking smaller than she had ever seen him, not because his pride had disappeared, but because something deeply personal had been taken away in public. After officers finally left, Maverick quietly picked up the jacket. Dust covered the memorial patches. One of the stitched names had partially torn loose. He didn't cry. Taryn did. That evening she uploaded the video with only one sentence. This jacket carries memories of people who never came home. Today they stripped away more than leather. She expected a few family members to see it. Instead, millions did. Veterans recognized the memorial patches. Motorcyclists recognized the respect that had been ignored. Families who had lost loved ones recognized the silent pain on Maverick's face. The video exploded across social media. News stations began calling. Comment sections filled with stories from military families, firefighters, nurses, and ordinary people who understood that symbols sometimes carry entire lifetimes. What happened next surprised even the biggest motorcycle clubs in America. Phone calls spread from chapter to chapter. No speeches, no threats, no anger, just one message: ride tomorrow. Before sunrise the following morning, highways leading toward the city filled with motorcycles. Chrome reflected the rising sun for miles. Riders came from neighboring states, bringing veterans, first responders, retired mechanics, teachers, business owners, and fathers who simply believed respect mattered. By noon nearly 600 Hells Angels members had arrived. The city expected chaos. Instead they found discipline. Every motorcycle parked in neat rows. Every rider removed sunglasses before speaking with local residents. Coffee shops received unexpected customers who tipped generously. Restaurants suddenly found anonymous cash left behind for struggling waitresses. Gas stations sold out of bottled water after riders purchased cases, not for themselves, but for construction workers laboring in the desert heat. People waiting for violence instead witnessed kindness. Local reporters couldn't believe what they were seeing. One elderly woman became stranded with a flat tire just blocks away. Before roadside assistance even answered her phone, 6 bikers had already changed her tire, checked her engine, hugged her goodbye, and disappeared. A little boy waiting outside a hospital smiled as dozens of motorcycles slowly rolled past. One rider climbed off his bike and handed the child a small stuffed bear before continuing the ride. The city slowly realized this gathering wasn't about intimidation. It was about dignity. Meanwhile, Maverick remained at home, overwhelmed by everything unfolding outside. He never asked anyone to come. He never wanted attention. He only wanted people to understand that respect should never depend on appearances. Late that afternoon, organizers requested permission to visit him. When hundreds of motorcycles quietly entered his neighborhood, residents stepped outside expecting roaring engines and chaos. Instead, every bike shut off 2 streets away. Hundreds of riders walked the remaining distance in complete silence. No engines, no shouting, only boots against pavement. Neighbors watched with tears as one by one they placed flowers beside Maverick's front porch. Veterans saluted. Mothers hugged strangers. Children waved tiny American flags handed out by volunteers. Taryn stood speechless. She had never imagined her simple recording would unite so many people from completely different backgrounds. Then something remarkable happened. A young police officer approached the house alone. It wasn't one of the officers involved. His name was Rowan Pierce. His hands shook as he removed his cap. He admitted he had watched the video repeatedly throughout the night. He confessed his own grandfather had been a veteran who treasured an old military jacket in exactly the same way Maverick treasured his leather vest. Rowan apologized, not because he personally caused the incident, but because he believed wearing a badge meant accepting responsibility whenever public trust was damaged. His quiet humility touched everyone present. Maverick invited him inside. They spoke privately for nearly an hour. No cameras entered. No reporters listened. Whatever they discussed remained between 2 men who both understood honor looked very different from pride. The following week, city officials organized a public gathering at the same gas station where everything had happened. This time there were no confrontations. Instead, hundreds of residents arrived carrying candles. Veterans displayed photographs of lost friends. Families shared stories about loved ones whose uniforms or jackets had become priceless memories after death. Psychologists explained why symbolic possessions often become anchors for grief. Teachers brought students to learn about empathy instead of judgment. What began as a painful incident transformed into a citywide lesson about compassion. The police department announced expanded training focused on respectful communication during public interactions. Several officers privately apologized to Maverick. Not every wound healed immediately. Trust rarely returns overnight, but sincere effort had begun. Months later, the charity ride Maverick originally planned finally took place. Attendance shattered every previous record. Thousands participated. Money raised supported wounded veterans, grieving military families, and emergency assistance for first responders facing financial hardship. Taryn rode beside her husband once again. His repaired jacket rested proudly on his shoulders. The torn memorial patch had been carefully stitched by the widow of one of the veterans it honored. The repair remained visible. Maverick refused to hide it. He believed scars deserved to be remembered because they proved something valuable had survived. As the massive procession crossed the desert highways, people stood on overpasses waving flags. Children cheered. Truck drivers sounded their horns. Families smiled through tears. No one remembered the day because a jacket had been taken. They remembered it because kindness had answered humiliation. One courageous woman chose to film truth instead of looking away. One quiet man refused hatred even after being publicly embarrassed. Hundreds of strangers proved brotherhood could protect dignity without throwing a single punch. The leather jacket eventually became famous, but not because of its patches. It became a reminder that respect can never be stripped away by force when enough people choose compassion over anger. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share this video, and subscribe to Kindness Legacy. Every interaction helps these stories reach people who may need hope today. Glowing star special request. Comment below with one word, respect, if you believe every person deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter how they look or what they wear. Long after headlines disappeared, people still remembered the image of a wife holding a shaking phone while refusing to stop recording. They remembered a husband who answered humiliation with grace. They remembered hundreds of motorcycles arriving not to spread fear, but to remind an entire city that true strength is measured by self-control, compassion, and loyalty. And perhaps most importantly, they remembered that even in a divided world, one act of courage can inspire thousands of hearts to ride together in the same direction, toward kindness, understanding, and hope.